As you can imagine, a lot of papers in the region, starting off with China Daily. Their front page is dedicated to this, the grim ferry disaster hunt, and hundreds of passengers that still remain unaccounted for. And you can see some photos there of those rescue efforts as the boat was sinking. Also on the front page of The Independent today with a photo of relatives waiting for news about their loved ones. The cruel sea, says The Independent, and has a very upsetting account of the disaster inside, including one heartbreaking detail, which is that some of the school children that were trapped on board sent text messages to their parents as they started realizing what was happening. And to quote one of these text messages from a young man, "Mom, this might be the last chance I have to tell you I love you." And his mother replied but didn't get an answer. Now, this article also points out how many people are critical of the rescue effort. The article points out that passengers were told to stay put as the ship was sinking, and many of them were trapped this way. To quote one of the survivors, "We were wearing life jackets. We had time. If people had jumped into the water, they could have been rescued, but we were told not to go out." So that's what's happening in The Independent. But one thing that a lot of papers are focusing on is just why the boat sank, and it's unclear for now exactly what happened, but the Korea Times is looking at one theory that's being put forward, and that's that the ferry hit a submerged rock. And this quotes survivors saying that they heard a big thumping sound before the ship began to sink.
Some really difficult times for the relatives who are waiting to find out. All right, if we look at some other international news which the press is covering, Ukraine is also quite big in the headlines, isn't it?
That's right. It's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. It's talking about the chaotic start for Ukraine's moves in the east. This article points out that the government's military operations to try to take back towns in the east from pro-Russian separatists got off to a rocky start, and describes scenes where you had civilians blocking tanks that were trying to move forward. Now, the International New York Times focuses on one idea that's being put forward as a possible solution to the crisis, and that's to turn Ukraine into a federation. Defenders of this idea say that it would give regions more autonomy and protect their rights more, for instance, with respect to language issues, etc. And this would also rein in the powers of the central government in Kiev. And Russia is a big defender of this idea, but the International New York Times points out that the government in Kiev this is a very taboo idea. Federalization has become the F word, says the International New York Times. A lot of people, critics of this idea, say that it's just a ruse to try and split the country up and to keep it in Russia's sphere of influence. And the article says that it's become such a dirty word, such a toxic word, that Ukrainian diplomats have actually been banned from discussing the issue at talks in Geneva today.
Okay, Flo, moving on, those presidential elections, the polls are now open officially in Algeria. How is the Algerian press reacting to this?
Well, the Quotidien d'Oran wonders how many voters are actually going to turn out. There are 23 million voters that have been called to cast their ballot, but some might have been put off by the campaign. Le Quotidien d'Oran says the campaign was dirty and mean, and Liberté agrees. It says that the two words that were thrown around the most during the campaign were fraud and violence. And so Liberté says that there's a really anxious atmosphere in the country as these elections kick off. And a cartoon in Liberté agrees with this and says that les Algériens sont très inquiets. Algerians are very worried what's going to happen after April 17th. And you can see they're asking a fortune teller there. And she says, what comes after the 17th? The 18th. So not much of an answer there.
All right, and just finally, we've heard a bit about it this morning, but Google facing a disappointment.
That's right. Now, Google is famous for having a secretive research and development lab called Google X. Now, it's been behind crazy projects like the Google Glass and driverless cars, but, well, engineers there have run into one problem they can't seem to find a solution to. You can read about it in Business Insider. They've met their match with plans to build an elevator into space. Now, this is a real idea. It's not some crazy science fiction project. This came out yesterday, actually. It emerged that Google X was seriously trying to explore a way to suspend a tether between Earth and a satellite. And, well, hopes were driven down because they didn't manage to find a material that was strong enough. Scientists said they needed a material that was at least 100 times stronger than steel, and that just hasn't been discovered yet. Now, another project that the company failed to get off the ground was the hoverboard. It also ran into technical difficulties, and so these projects have been put into a deep freeze until technology comes around. So hopefully
the sort of obvious joke is, do they not just Google it and see if they can find one? But probably doesn't really work.
Good one, Stephen. All right, Flo, thanks very much for that update for us. Next, coming up in focus, the Bitcoin, the mysterious digital currency, is the talk of the town in New York City. But there's been some controversy surrounding the cryptocurrency. Our reporters take a look at why.